Greetings and welcome back to Junior English, and we now turn in our MyPerspectives volume to unit number 2. I'm with you on page 138 and following. The individual and society fitting in or standing out is the topic of unit 2. And on page 139, I want you to look at the two questions that are there. First of all, the essential question, what role does individualism play in American society? And then the prompt question at the bottom of that page, what significant event helped me realize that I am a unique individual? I want you to work with the unit goals on page 140 and the academic vocabulary of personal narrative, which you'll be writing for on page 141. But now we want to turn to the launch text on page 142, 143. Now, again, as every one of these units will have, this launch text will provide us with a model of what you'll be writing, and in this case it is the narrative model. This selection, now I'm reading with you on page 142. This selection is an example of a narrative text. It is a personal narrative. The author tells a story about himself using a first-person point of view. This is the type of writing you will develop in the performance-based assessment at the end of the unit. As you read, notice the author's use of specific details. Mark words and phrases that convey his experiences and feelings with vividness and clarity. Now, this reading will come from one of our great American texts, Up From Slavery, by Booker T. Washington, about the author. Booker T. Washington, 1856 to 1915, was born into slavery and overcame enormous obstacles to become a noted author, educator, and advisor to 2 American presidents. This excerpt is from chapter 3 of his autobiography, Up From Slavery, in which Washington describes his experiences at Hampton Institute in the early 1870s. Hampton Institute, of course, later to become Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia. Now again, just like the earlier launch text for Unit 1, notice we've got 6 paragraphs going on here. We will read and we will annotate as we read. When I had saved what I considered enough money with which to reach Hampton, I thanked the captain of the vessel for his kindness and started again. Without any unusual occurrence, I reached Hampton with a surplus of exactly 50 cents with which to begin my education. So we'll just pause for a moment and point out that he arrives for his education with very little currency. To me, it had been a long, eventful journey. I would circle the word journey, and of course off in the note sections you can obviously write down the other word that we have for journey in Western literature, and it is obviously the Odyssey, that is to say, the story of Odysseus. To me it had been a long, eventful journey, but the first sight of the large three-story brick school building seemed to have rewarded me for all that I had undergone in order to reach the place. In other words, for him, he was very excited about his education that was about to begin at school. Paragraph 2. As soon as possible, after reaching the grounds of the Hampton Institute, I presented myself before the head teacher for assignment to a class. Now, this head teacher is going to be the individual who ostensibly holds the power over whether Booker T. Washington is going to be allowed to be educated or not. Having been so long without proper food, a bath, and change of clothing, I did not, of course, make a very favorable impression upon her, and I could see at once that there were doubts in her mind about the wisdom of admitting me as a student. Put it off to the side, you can write it in your own words. He doesn't look like much of a potential student. I felt that I could hardly blame her if she got the idea that I was a worthless loafer or tramp. Notice that Washington tries to see from the other perspective, and he says, well, I can kind of see why she might not think I'm much of a potential student. For some time, she did not refuse to admit me. Neither did she decide in my favor. In other words, it isn't clear what she's going to do. And I continued to linger about her and to impress her in all the ways I could with my worthiness. Notice right away, his view is, it's my job to impress this person with my value, with my potentiality. In the meantime, I saw her admitting other students, and that added greatly to my discomfort, for I felt deep down in my heart that I could do as well as they if I could only get a chance to show what was in me. Write it off to the side. What is it that he says? All I need is a chance. Notice the great belief that Booker T. Washington will have in himself, if only I was given a chance. Paragraph 3. After some hours had passed, the head teacher said to me, "The adjoining recitation room needs sweeping. Take the broom and sweep it." Now, there's the activity, right? Now, of course, it's menial work. And it's very possible that Washington could have said, "I am here to be educated. I am not here to sweep floors into dust." But notice how his response is going to set the tenor of his whole life. Paragraph 4. "It occurred to me at once that here was my chance. Never did I receive an order with more delight." Notice, you can write it off to the side. Attitude is everything here, right? "I knew that I could sweep, for Mrs. Ruffner," earlier in the autobiography we learn of her, "had thoroughly taught me how to do that when I lived with her," that is to say, to sweep into dust. Paragraph 5. "I swept this recitation room 3 times. Then I got a dusting cloth and I dusted it 4 times. Notice overdoing the job, right? You can write that off to the side. "All the woodwork around the walls, every bench, table, and desk, I went over 4 times with my dusting cloth. Besides, every piece of furniture had been moved, every closet and corner of the room had been thoroughly cleaned. I had the feeling that in a large measure, my future depended upon the impression I made upon the teacher in the cleaning of that room. When I was through, I reported to the head teacher. She was a quote-unquote Yankee woman who knew just where to look for dirt. She went into the room and inspected the floor and closets. Then she took her handkerchief and rubbed it on the woodwork above the walls and over the table and benches. When she was unable to find one bit of dirt on the floor or a particle of dust on any of the furniture, she quietly," I would circle that word, "she quietly remarked, 'I guess you will do to enter this institution.'" Wow. Now, go ahead and write off to the side your feelings about this head teacher and the way that she responds. Some of you will say, she was looking for a reason to get rid of Washington. You would probably not be far off. Some of you will say, she was giving Washington a chance or an opportunity to prove himself. Maybe you're right about that. Either way, he did impress her enough that she quietly at least will say, "Fine, fine, fine, we'll let you into our school." Final paragraph. "I was one of the happiest souls on earth. The sweeping of that room was my college examination, and never did any youth pass an examination for entrance into Harvard or Yale that gave him more genuine satisfaction. I have passed several examinations since then, but I've always felt that this was the best one I ever passed." Notice at the end the attitude Washington has as it relates to this person. She will, of course, be looking for a reason to not allow him into the school. He will take this as a challenge that he will rise to. Notice, it doesn't matter to him what her opinion or attitude was of him. He is going to respond accordingly through what? Excellence, hard work, diligence, and the like. Now, of course, we're emphasizing individualism. So at the bottom of page 143, I want you to do that vocabulary activity. Then over to page 144, I want you to summarize quickly what you've read here. And then I want you to look at the launch activity at the bottom of 144, tell a story. And then finally on page 145, I want you to do a quick write of this prompt that you'll be writing on later. What significant incident helped me to realize that I am a unique individual? This is, of course, the 3B question of our reading. Have you had a time in your life, like Washington, where you had an opportunity to prove your value and your worth, and you're proud of yourself that you were able to do it? I welcome you back now to the readings of Unit 2. Thank you.